The first thing people noticed about Ada was not her beauty, though she had that in quiet abundance. It was her warmth. It lived in the way she spoke, soft and careful, like she was always mindful not to hurt the air around her. It showed in her eyes, steady and kind, even when life pressed hard against her. And it was most evident in the way she loved Obinna. Their home was small, painfully small, some would say. A single room sat at the end of a narrow compound, its walls slightly cracked, its zinc roof patched in different places where rain had once forced its way through. When the wind blew hard, the roof would rattle like it was arguing with the sky. But to Ada it was enough, because Obinna was there. That morning, like many others, Ada woke before the sun. The room was still dark, the faint blue of dawn just beginning to creep in through the tiny window. She lay still for a moment, listening to the distant crow of a rooster, the rustle of leaves outside, and most importantly, to Obinna's breathing beside her. Slow, heavy, peaceful. She turned slightly and watched him. Even in sleep, his face carried the faint lines of worry. Life had not been easy on him, but there was still something strong about him, something unbroken. Ada reached out gently and brushed her fingers across his forehead, smoothing the crease there. "Rest," she whispered softly, though he could not hear her. "You need it." Carefully, she slipped out of bed, tying her wrapper firmly around her waist. The floor was cold beneath her feet, but she moved with quiet familiarity, careful not to wake him. In the corner of the room sat a small kerosene stove. She knelt beside it, struck a match, and coaxed the flame to life. Soon, the room filled with the soft crackle of fire and the faint aroma of boiling water. This was her routine, her responsibility, her pride. Outside, the compound was slowly waking up. Neighbors moved about, buckets clanged, distant voices called out greetings. Life was beginning again. Ada worked quickly, preparing a simple meal, packing ingredients she would later use for her roadside food business. By the time Obinna stirred, the room was already alive with warmth. He sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. "Ada?" he called. "I'm here," she replied immediately, turning toward him with a smile that felt like sunlight. "You're already awake?" he asked, his voice still heavy with sleep. Ada laughed softly. "If I sleep as long as you, who will make sure you don't go to work hungry?" Obinna shook his head, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "You worry too much, and you don't worry enough," she teased. He stretched, then looked around the small room, the worn walls, the patched roof, the simple furnishings. For a brief moment his expression changed. A shadow passed over it. Ada noticed. She always noticed. "What is it?" she asked gently. Obinna hesitated, then sighed. I wish I could give you more." Ada didn't respond immediately. Instead, she walked over to him, knelt in front of where he sat, and took his hands in hers. Her palms were rough from work, but her touch was soft. "Look at me," she said. He did. "This," she gestured around the room, "is not everything we have. It's just where we are now." Obinna's eyes searched hers. "But you deserve better." Ada smiled. "And I have better." He frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "You." The word landed between them, simple and powerful. Obinna let out a quiet breath, shaking his head as if he didn't fully believe it. But Ada did. Completely. Later that morning, Obinna prepared for work. He wore a neatly ironed shirt, one Ada had carefully washed and pressed the night before, and a pair of trousers that had seen better days but were still presentable. As he adjusted his collar, Ada stood behind him, helping smooth it down. "You'll be late," she said. "I know," he replied, but made no move to rush. Instead, he turned to face her. "Come here." Ada stepped closer. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her into a gentle embrace. For a moment, everything else faded. The noise outside, the struggles, the uncertainties. It was just them. "I'll come back early today," he said. "You say that every day," Ada replied with a playful smile. "And one day, I'll mean it." She laughed softly. "I'll be waiting, whether you're early or late." He pulled back slightly, studying her face. You're too good to me. Ada tilted her head. Is that a complaint? He smiled. No. After Obinna left, Ada began her own day. Her food business was small. Just a roadside setup with a wooden table, a few pots, and a makeshift shade to shield her from the harsh sun. But she treated it like something much bigger. She arranged everything carefully, ensuring her space was clean and inviting. Soon, customers began to arrive. Workers, passers-by, regulars who had come to trust her cooking. Ada, your food is the only thing that makes this road worth passing, one man joked. She laughed. Then you should pass here more often. Her laughter was contagious. Her food was delicious. And slowly, day by day, she built something out of almost nothing. Still, it wasn't easy. The sun was unforgiving. The profits were small. And sometimes, after counting her earnings, she would sit quietly for a moment, calculating, planning, worrying. But she never let it show, because she had a purpose, a future she believed in. That evening, Obinna returned home later than usual. Ada was already waiting. She always was. The moment she saw him, she knew something was different. His shoulders were heavier, his steps slower. Obinna? She called, concern immediately filling her voice. He forced a smile. I'm fine. Ada didn't believe him. She never believed him when he said that. Come and sit, she said gently. He obeyed. She placed food in front of him, but he didn't touch it. Instead, he stared at it, lost in thought. Ada sat beside him. What happened today? Silence. Then finally, they promoted someone else. Ada blinked. What? I've been working there for years, he said, his voice tight. I trained him. I showed him everything. And today, they promoted him. Ada felt a sharp pain in her chest. Not because of the promotion, but because of the way Obinna said it, like something inside him had been bruised. I'm sorry, she said softly. Obinna laughed bitterly. Sorry doesn't change anything. No, Ada agreed. But it doesn't end everything either. He looked at her. You still believe things will get better? Yes. How? Ada paused. Then she said quietly, because we haven't given up. Obinna studied her face for a long moment, and slowly, something inside him steadied. Later that night, they sat outside their room under the open sky. The air was cooler now, the sounds of the day fading into the calm of night. Above them, stars stretched endlessly. Obinna pointed upward. You see that? Ada followed his gaze. Yes. One day, we'll have a house big enough that we can sit on our own balcony and watch the stars like this. Ada smiled. You and this your house dream. It's not just a dream, he said. I've already started building it. I know, she replied softly. And I'll finish it. Ada leaned her head against his shoulder. I know you will. There was no doubt in her voice. No hesitation. Just belief. And in that moment, under that wide, quiet sky, with empty pockets, with uncertain futures, with struggles waiting just around the corner, they had something many people never find. They had each other. And for now, that was enough. The day everything changed did not announce itself. There was no thunder, no warning, no sign written across the sky. It began like any other morning. Ada woke before dawn, as usual, her body already trained to rise before the world did. The room was quiet, the air still. For a moment, she lay there, listening to the soft rhythm of Obinna's breathing beside her. Calmed her. It always did. She turned her head slightly, studying his face in the dim light. His expression was relaxed, but even in sleep, there was something fragile about it now, like a man carrying invisible weight. Ada reached out, brushing her fingers lightly across his arm. Wake up soon, she whispered. You'll be late. She slipped out of bed and began her morning routine, lighting the kerosene stove, preparing food, organizing the ingredients she would need later for her business. But something felt off. She couldn't explain it. Maybe it was the way Obinna had been quieter than usual the night before, or how he had barely touched his food, or the way he had stared at nothing for long stretches, like his thoughts were somewhere far away. Ada pushed the feeling aside. Maybe he's just tired, she told herself. When Obinna finally woke, he moved slower than usual. Ada, he called, his voice rough. I'm here, she replied quickly, turning toward him with a gentle smile. You didn't wake me. I tried, she said lightly. But you were sleeping like someone who doesn't want to go to work. He forced a small chuckle, but it didn't reach his eyes. Ada noticed. She always noticed. Are you all right? She asked. I'm fine, he said quickly, standing up. Too quickly. Too rehearsed. Ada watched him closely, but said nothing more. If something was wrong, he would tell her. He always did. Obinna left the house that morning dressed as usual. His shirt neatly ironed, his shoes worn but clean. But something about the way he walked felt different. Slower, heavier, like each step required effort. Ada stood at the doorway watching him go. Come back early today, she called out. He didn't turn. I'll try, he replied, and then he was gone. The sun rose fully, bringing with it the usual noise of the day. Ada went to her roadside stand, arranging her pots, lighting her fire, preparing meals. Customers came and went. She smiled, served, laughed when needed. But her mind wandered. Time and time again, she found herself glancing at the road, half expecting to see Obinna walking back toward her. By midday, she shook her head slightly. You're worrying for nothing, she told herself. But her heart didn't listen. Obinna did not go to work that day. Instead, he sat under a tree not far from the construction site where he had been employed. The letter was still in his pocket. He had read it so many times that the words had burned themselves into his memory. Due to company restructuring, that was how it started. Cold, formal, distant. It ended with something worse. Your services are no longer required. Obinna closed his eyes. He had given everything to that job. Years of labor, sweat under the harsh sun, extra hours, loyalty, and in the end, it meant nothing. He clenched his fists. What do I tell Ada? The thought alone made his chest tighten. He imagined her face, soft, hopeful, full of belief in him. How do you look at someone who believes in you so completely and tell them you've failed? Obinna exhaled slowly, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. For the first time in a long time, he felt small. He didn't go home immediately. Instead, he wandered from one street to another, past shops, past people, past life, continuing as if nothing had happened. But everything had happened. By the time he finally returned home, the sun was already setting. Ada was waiting. She was sitting just outside their room, her hands resting in her lap. The moment she saw him, she stood up quickly. You're late, she said, but her voice carried more concern than accusation. Obinna nodded, avoiding her eyes. Work, he muttered. Ada stepped closer. You didn't eat lunch, did you? I wasn't hungry. That was the second lie. Ada didn't challenge him. Instead, she simply took his hand. Come inside. Dinner was quiet. Too quiet. Obinna barely touched his food. Ada noticed. Of course she did. But she didn't push. Not yet. After they finished eating, or rather, after Ada finished eating, she gathered the plates and set them aside. Then she sat beside him. Not too close. Not too far. Just enough. Talk to me, she said softly. Obinna stared ahead. There's nothing to say. Ada turned slightly toward him. There's always something to say. Silence. Then, I'm just tired. Ada studied his face carefully. No, this was more than tired. This was something deeper. But she nodded anyway. Okay. She leaned back slightly, giving him space. Sometimes love was not about forcing answers. Sometimes it was about waiting. The next morning, Obinna left again. Dressed, prepared, pretending. But this time, Ada watched him more closely. She stood at the doorway longer than usual, her eyes following him until he disappeared from view. Then she frowned. Something wasn't right. Days passed. Then weeks. The pattern continued. Obinna would leave every morning. Return late. Speak little. Eat less. Laugh. Not at all. Ada's worry grew, but so did something else. Fear. One afternoon, Ada closed her business earlier than usual. She wiped her hands on her wrapper, her heart beating faster than normal. I need to know. Without telling anyone, she made her way toward Obinna's workplace. The construction site was busy. Men moved about, carrying materials, shouting instructions, building something piece by piece. Ada approached slowly, scanning the area. She didn't see him. She waited. Still nothing. Finally, she stopped one of the workers. "Excuse me," she said politely. "I'm looking for Obinna." The man looked at her, confused. "Obinna?" "Yes, he works here." The man hesitated. Then his expression changed slightly. "Oh, you didn't hear?" Ada felt her stomach drop. "Hear what?" "He doesn't work here anymore." The world seemed to tilt. "What do you mean?" "He was laid off. Weeks ago." Ada stared at him. Weeks. Weeks. Her mind raced. Then, where has he been going every day? That evening, Ada didn't wait outside. She stayed inside, sitting, thinking, waiting. When Obinna finally returned, he found her already there. Quiet, still, watching him. "Ada," he said slowly. She didn't smile this time. "Sit down." Something in her tone made him obey immediately. He sat. She took a deep breath, then asked, "When were you going to tell me?" Obinna froze. "Tell you what?" Ada held his gaze. "You lost your job." Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Obinna looked away. "How did you find out?" "I went there today." Another silence. Longer this time. Then finally, "I didn't want to worry you." Ada felt something twist inside her. "Worry me?" she repeated softly. "Obinna, I am your wife." "I know." "Then why would you hide something like this from me?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustration building. "Because I'm supposed to take care of you," he snapped. "I'm supposed to provide. And now I can't even do that." Ada didn't flinch. Instead, her voice softened even more. "So you decided to carry it alone?" Obinna didn't answer, because the truth was, yes. Days turned darker after that. Obinna stopped pretending to go to work. He stopped going out altogether. He would sit for hours, sometimes on the bed, sometimes outside, just sitting, lost. Ada tried. She really did. She encouraged him. She spoke gently. She reminded him of his strength. But depression is a quiet thief. It steals motivation. It steals hope. It steals light. And slowly, it was stealing Obinna. Meanwhile, the unfinished house stood still, silent, waiting. The blocks he had once laid with pride now felt like mockery. A reminder of a dream paused, or perhaps broken. Ada would sometimes stand at a distance, looking at it. Then she would look back at Obinna, and her heart would ache. But she made a decision. If one of them was falling, the other would stand. And so she worked harder, longer hours, less rest, more effort. Because even if Obinna couldn't carry their future right now, she would carry it for both of them. Quietly, lovingly, completely. By the time the idea first came to Ada, it did not feel like an idea. It felt like a whisper. Soft, persistent, impossible to ignore. She had heard it in passing conversations, customers at her food stand, neighbors talking in hushed excitement, strangers sharing stories like legends. America! The word carried something heavy with it. Opportunity, escape, reinvention. Ada had listened before, but never like this. Before, it had always sounded like something meant for other people. People with connections, money, or luck. Not people like them. Not people like Obinna. But now everything was different. That evening, Ada sat quietly outside their room, her hands resting on her lap, her mind moving faster than she could control. Inside, Obinna was lying down again. He had barely spoken that day, barely eaten, barely moved. The man who once talked about building houses, about the future, about possibilities, now stared at the ceiling like it held nothing at all. Ada swallowed hard. She could not lose him like this. She would not. It had been weeks since Obinna lost his job. Weeks of silence. Weeks of watching him fade slowly, like a flame running out of oil. Ada had tried everything she knew. Encouragement, gentle words, patience. But nothing had changed. And that terrified her. Because if something did not change soon, she might lose more than just their stability. She might lose him completely. The decision did not come all at once. It built slowly, piece by piece, until it became something she could no longer ignore. That night, she walked into the room and sat beside Obinna. He didn't turn, didn't ask, didn't react. "Ada," he murmured faintly, his voice distant. "Yes," she said softly. Silence stretched between them. Then she took a breath. "There's something I've been thinking about." Obinna closed his eyes. Ada hesitated. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't sure how he would respond. "I think," she began slowly, "you should travel." That got his attention. His eyes opened. He turned his head toward her, confusion written clearly across his face. "Travel?" he repeated. "Yes." "Where?" Ada held his gaze. "America." The word hung in the air between them, heavy, unreal. Obinna stared at her for a long moment. Then suddenly, he laughed, not with humor, but disbelief. "Ada," he said, shaking his head, "this is not the time for jokes." "I'm not joking." His expression hardened slightly. "You think I can just get up and go to America?" "No," she said calmly. "Not just like that." "Then how?" he asked, frustration creeping into his voice. "Do you know how much it costs? Do you know what it takes?" "Yes," Ada replied quietly. "And yet you're still saying this?" "Yes." Obinna sat up slowly, staring at her like he didn't recognize her. "Ada, we can barely feed ourselves right now." "I know. I don't even have a job." "I know. So why would you even think?" "Because staying like this will destroy you." The words landed sharply. Obinna froze. Ada's voice softened immediately. "I'm sorry," she said gently. "But it's true." He looked away. His jaw tightened. "I'm already destroyed," he muttered. Ada shook her head. "No." She moved closer. "You are hurt. You are tired. You are disappointed. But you are not destroyed." He didn't respond, because a part of him wanted to believe her, but a louder part didn't. The days that followed were tense. The conversation lingered between them, unresolved. Obinna dismissed it, ignored it, refused to entertain it. But Ada didn't bring it up again immediately. Instead, she started planning. Ada began to save differently. Not just small coins. Not just leftover change. Everything. She reduced her own meals, cut down on personal needs, increased her cooking, woke up earlier, slept later. Customers began to notice. "Ada, are you trying to kill yourself with work?" one woman asked. Ada smiled faintly. "No, I'm trying to build something." "What thing?" Ada paused, then said quietly, "A future." But saving alone was not enough. Ada knew that. The amount needed was far beyond what her small business could produce quickly. So she did something she had never done before. She borrowed. The first time she asked for a loan, her hands trembled slightly. She stood in front of a woman who ran a small cooperative savings group. "I will pay back," Ada said firmly. "Every kobo." The woman studied her. "You're taking a big risk." Ada nodded. "I know. What is it for?" Ada hesitated, then answered honestly. "For my husband." The woman's expression softened just slightly. "Love can make people do dangerous things," she said. Ada smiled faintly. "Or powerful things." One loan became two. Two became three. Ada kept track of everything. Every amount. Every deadline. Every promise. Because failure was not an option. At home, Obinna began to notice the changes. The longer hours. The exhaustion. The way Ada sometimes sat quietly, staring into nothing for just a second before shaking herself back to reality. One evening, he finally asked, "What are you doing?" Ada looked up from where she was counting money. "Working." "No," he said. "Not just working. Something else." She hesitated. then decided it was time. "Sit down," she said. Obinna frowned slightly but obeyed. Ada took a deep breath. "I haven't stopped thinking about what I said." "About America?" "Yes." Obinna sighed immediately. "Ada, please," she interrupted softly. "Just listen." He fell silent. "I know it sounds impossible," she continued. "I know it's expensive. I know it's risky. But tell me something." She looked directly into his eyes. "If you had the chance, would you go?" Obinna hesitated, because the honest answer was yes, but saying it felt dangerous. "Ada, just answer me." He exhaled slowly. "Yes." Ada nodded. "Then that's enough." Obinna frowned. "What do you mean?" "It means it's worth trying." He shook his head. "No, it means it's worth dreaming, not risking everything we have." Ada leaned forward slightly. "What do we have right now, Obinna?" The question caught him off guard. He didn't answer. "Look around," she said gently. "Tell me, what exactly are we protecting?" Silence. Painful. Real. "I've already started saving," Ada continued quietly. Obinna's head snapped up. "What?" "I've taken loans." "What?" he repeated, louder this time. "I'm working more. I'm putting everything together." "Ada, are you serious right now?" he asked, disbelief and anger mixing in his voice. "You're going into debt? For this? For us?" "No," he snapped. "This is madness." Ada didn't raise her voice. "This is hope." "This is gambling," he shot back. "This is believing in you." The words hit harder than anything else. Obinna went silent. "I have seen you at your best," Ada said, her voice trembling slightly now. "I have seen your dreams, your plans, your strength. And I refuse to believe that this," she gestured around them, "is where your story ends." Obinna swallowed hard. "You don't understand," he said quietly. "What if I go, and I fail?" Ada nodded slowly. "Then you fail." He blinked. "What?" "You fail," she repeated. "And then we start again." Obinna stared at her. "But what if I succeed?" Ada smiled. "Then everything changes." The room fell silent again. But this silence was different. It wasn't empty. It was full. Full of possibility. Full of fear. Full of something neither of them could fully name. Tears filled Obinna's eyes before he could stop them. "You believe in me this much?" he asked, his voice breaking. Ada didn't hesitate. "I believe in us." And that was it. That was the moment everything shifted. Not because the situation had changed. Not because the money had suddenly appeared. But because hope had found its way back in. And this time came with a price. A heavy one. But Ada was ready to pay it. Because some risks are not taken because they are safe. They are taken because they are necessary. And this one, this risk called hope, would change everything. The morning Obinna was to leave did not feel real. Even as Ada tied her wrapper and moved around their small room, packing the last few things he would carry, there was a strange numbness in her chest, like her heart had refused to fully accept what was happening. It had taken months. Months of sacrifice. Months of debt. Months of pushing through exhaustion, fear, and doubt. And now, it had come down to this. A small, worn travel bag sat on the bed. Inside it were neatly folded clothes, carefully selected and arranged by Ada's hands. Nothing expensive, nothing new, but everything clean, intentional, and filled with meaning. She paused for a moment, staring at the bag. This is really happening. Behind her, Obinna sat quietly on the edge of the bed. He hadn't spoken much that morning. In fact, he hadn't slept much either. His eyes carried a mixture of emotions: gratitude, fear, guilt, and something else, something heavier. Ada turned to face him. "Is everything there?" he asked, his voice low. She nodded. "Yes." A pause. Then she added softly, "I checked twice." Obinna gave a faint smile. "That sounds like you." Ada tried to smile back, but it didn't fully form. The room felt different. Not smaller, but emptier already, as though it knew one of them was about to leave. Ada picked up the bag and handed it to him. For a moment their fingers brushed. Neither of them pulled away immediately. Instead, they held on. Just for a second longer than necessary. Just enough to say what words couldn't. "Are you ready?" Ada asked quietly. Obinna hesitated. No, he wasn't ready. How do you prepare to leave the person who carried you through your darkest moment? How do you walk away from the only place that still feels like home? But he nodded anyway. "I have to be." The journey to the roadside where he would board his transport felt longer than usual. They walked side by side, not holding hands, not speaking much, just walking. Every step felt heavy. Every second felt like it was slipping too fast. Around them, life continued as normal. People rushing, traders calling out, vehicles passing. But for Ada and Obinna, time had slowed. When they finally reached the roadside, the vehicle was already there. Waiting, impatient, like it didn't care about goodbyes. Ada's chest tightened. This is it. She turned to face him fully now. For the first time since they left the house, she looked directly into his eyes. Really looked, as if trying to memorize every detail. "Obinna," he swallowed. "Yes." She hesitated. There were so many things she wanted to say. "Be safe. Don't forget me. Come back quickly. Don't change." But none of them felt big enough. So instead she said, "Don't give up." Obinna blinked. Of all the things she could have said, that was what she chose. "I won't," he replied softly. "You can't," she added. "Not after everything." Her voice wavered slightly. Obinna reached for her hands. "I won't waste what you've done for me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise you." Ada nodded. "I know." There was a brief silence. Then Obinna pulled her into an embrace. Tight, desperate, like he was trying to hold onto her through time and distance. Ada held him just as tightly, her fingers gripping the back of his shirt. Her eyes closed, breathing him in, memorizing him. "I'll come back for you," he whispered into her hair. Ada didn't respond immediately, because for a split second, fear crept in. What if things change? What if he doesn't? But she pushed it away. Trust was all she had, and she chose it. "I'll be waiting," she said. When they finally pulled apart, Ada stepped back. She didn't want him to see her cry, but her eyes were already glistening. Obinna noticed. He always noticed. "Hey," he said softly, lifting a hand to her face. A tear slipped out anyway. "I'm fine," she said quickly, forcing a smile. "You don't have to be strong all the time." "Yes, I do," she replied gently. "At least, until you come back." The driver called out. "Let's go." The moment had arrived. Obinna picked up his bag. He hesitated one last time. Then, he turned and walked toward the vehicle. Ada stood still, watching, not moving, not blinking, as if looking away would make him disappear faster. He got in. The door shut. The engine started. And just like that, he was leaving. As the vehicle pulled away, Ada raised her hand slowly, waving. Even though she wasn't sure if he could still see her, she kept waving, until the car became smaller, then gone. Ada didn't move immediately. She stood there for a long time, long after everyone else had gone about their business, long after the moment had passed. Her hand slowly dropped to her side, and then the tears came, quiet at first, then heavier, not loud, not dramatic, just steady, real, because for the first time in a long time, she was alone. That night, the room felt unbearably empty. The silence was different now, too loud, too present. Ada sat on the bed, staring at the space where Obinna used to lie. She reached out and touched it. Cold. She pulled her hand back slowly, then lay down, curling slightly, holding onto herself, as if trying to replace the warmth she had lost. But sleep didn't come easily. A few days later, Ada packed her things. Not many, just what she needed. She could no longer afford to stay in their room. The rent was due, and her savings were already stretched thin. So she did what had already been decided. She moved into Obinna's family house. At first, it seemed unmanageable. When she arrived, Obinna's mother greeted her with a polite smile. "You're welcome," she said. "Not warm, but not cold either." Ada bowed her head slightly. "Thank you, Ma." His younger sister watched her quietly from a corner, observing, measuring, saying nothing. Ada ignored the tension. "It will get better," she told herself. "I just need to be patient." The first few days were calm. Too calm. Ada helped with chores. She cleaned. She cooked when asked. She stayed out of the way. She didn't complain. And for a moment, it almost felt like she had found temporary stability. Then the change began. Small, subtle, easy to miss at first. A delayed response. A colder tone. A meal served last. Then, not served at all. "Ada, did you eat?" a neighbor asked one afternoon. Ada smiled faintly. Yes, but she hadn't. The whispers started too. Soft voices behind doors. Laughter that stopped when she entered a room. Conversations that suddenly changed direction. Ada pretended not to notice. But she heard. She always heard. One evening, as she swept the compound, she overheard Obinna's mother speaking to someone inside. "She thinks she can come here and enjoy," the woman said. Ada froze. "I don't even know what my son saw in her." Ada's grip tightened on the broom. "She's just there." The words cut deeper than any insult shouted to her face. Because they weren't meant for her. But they reached her anyway. That night, Ada sat quietly on the small mat she had been given to sleep on. Her stomach was empty, her body tired, but her mind restless. She stared at her phone. No message, no call. Then suddenly, it rang. Her heart jumped. "Obinna!" She answered immediately. "Ada!" His voice came through, distant but familiar. Tears filled her eyes instantly. "How are you?" he asked. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "Did you settle in well with my family?" Ada hesitated. Only for a second. "Yes." "Are they treating you well?" Another pause. Then, "Yes." Because the truth would only worry him. And she couldn't afford that. Not now. "I sent some money," Obinna continued. "Did you receive it?" Ada blinked. "Money? No, not yet," she said carefully. "Maybe it hasn't arrived," he replied. "I'll check." "Okay," she said softly. After the call ended, Ada sat there in silence. Her heart heavy. Her mind racing. Money? If he had sent money, then where was it? Outside her small sleeping space, she could hear laughter. Obinna's family. Eating. Talking. Living. And in that moment, a quiet realization settled into her chest. Something was wrong. Very wrong. But Ada did not yet know. This was only the beginning. At first, Ada told herself it was just adjustment. New environment. Different people. Different expectations. She repeated it like a quiet prayer each morning as she rose from the thin mat laid out for her in the corner of the house. Just give it time. But time, Ada would soon learn, does not always soften people. Sometimes, it reveals them. The house itself was not small. Compared to the single room she had shared with Obinna, it felt almost too big. Multiple rooms, a wide compound, a kitchen that always seemed busy with movement. But for Ada, none of that space belonged to her. She occupied corners, edges, spaces that could be taken away without notice. Her mat was rolled up every morning before sunrise, not because anyone told her to, but because she didn't want to be reminded that she had no real place there. Her day began before everyone else's. She swept the compound, fetched water, cleaned the kitchen, prepared ingredients, all quietly, all efficiently, all without complaint. At first, Obinna's mother would nod occasionally. She would say, "At least you are not lazy." Ada took it as something close to approval. It wasn't. The first clear crack came over something small. Food. One afternoon, after hours of work, Ada sat down near the kitchen wall, waiting for her turn to eat. The aroma of stew filled the air, rich and tempting. Her stomach tightened in anticipation. She hadn't eaten since morning. Obinna's sister served their mother first, then herself, They sat together, eating and talking. Ada waited, quiet, patient. Minutes passed, then more. Finally, Ada cleared her throat gently. Ma, should I serve myself? Obinna's mother didn't even look at her. There's nothing left. Ada blinked. But the pot. Did you not hear me? The woman snapped, her tone suddenly sharp. I said there's nothing left. Silence fell. Heavy. Awkward. Ada lowered her eyes. Yes, Ma. She stood slowly and stepped away. Her stomach twisted, not just from hunger, but from something deeper. Confusion. Because there had been enough food. More than enough. She had seen it, but she said nothing. That night, Ada lay on her mat, her body weak, her mind restless. Maybe it was just today, she told herself. Maybe tomorrow will be different. It wasn't. The coldness grew more deliberate, more obvious, more intentional. Instructions became commands. Requests became expectations. Kindness disappeared completely. Ada, wash those clothes. Ada, clean the bathroom. Ada, why are you standing like that? Do something useful. The tone changed. The respect vanished. And slowly, the truth began to settle in. One evening, as Ada scrubbed the floor, Obinna's sister stood nearby, watching her. You're very comfortable here, aren't you? She said casually. Ada paused. I'm just doing what I can to help. The girl scoffed. Help? Or stay? Ada looked up slightly. I don't understand. You think this is your house now? She continued, folding her arms. Because my brother traveled? Ada's chest tightened. No, I know it's not my house. Good, the girl said sharply. Because we didn't invite you here to relax. Ada lowered her gaze again. I'm not relaxing. Then make sure you remember your place. That phrase stayed with her. Your place. Ada repeated it silently as she worked. As she ate when she was allowed to. As she lay down at night. Your place. But where exactly was that? Days turned into weeks. The treatment worsened. Meals became inconsistent. Some days she was given leftovers. Other days nothing at all. When she fell sick briefly from exhaustion, no one asked. No one noticed. Or perhaps, they noticed and didn't care. But the hardest part wasn't the hunger. It wasn't the work. It wasn't even the insults. It was the calls. Every time Obinna called, Ada had to become someone else. Someone stronger. Someone happier. Someone untruthful. Ada, how are you? His voice would come, full of life, full of hope. I'm fine, she would reply, forcing brightness into her tone. Are they taking care of you? Yes. Are you eating well? Yes. Are you okay? Yes. Always yes. Even when the truth was no. One evening, as she sat outside after a long day, her phone rang again. Obinna. She answered immediately. I've been trying to reach you, he said. I was working, she replied. How are things there? Ada hesitated. For just a moment, her eyes drifted toward the house. She could hear laughter inside. Plates clinking. Voices full of comfort. Then she looked down at her hands. Dry. Worn. Tired. Everything is fine, she said. Obinna smiled on the other end. I'm glad. I worry about you. Ada swallowed. I know. I sent money again, he added. Did you receive it this time? Ada froze. Her heart skipped. No, she said slowly. What? Obinna sounded confused. I sent it days ago. Ada frowned slightly. I haven't seen anything. That's strange, he said. I'll check with them. Ada's grip tightened on the phone. With who? My family. I sent it to them for you. Silence. Everything inside Ada went still. After the call ended, she sat there for a long time. Not moving. Not thinking. Just feeling. A quiet realization began to form. The missing money. The food. The treatment. The whispers. It all started to connect. The next morning, Ada gathered courage. Not anger. Not confrontation. Just courage. She approached Obinna's mother respectfully. Ma? Can I ask you something? The woman didn't look up from where she sat. What is it? Auntie, Obinna said he has been sending money. A pause. Then, so? Ada swallowed. I haven't received any. Now the woman looked up, her expression unreadable. And what do you want me to do about that? Ada blinked. I thought, maybe it came here? The woman laughed. A cold, sharp sound. So now you are accusing me? No, Ma. I didn't mean. You think I'm stealing from my own son? She snapped. Ada stepped back slightly. I didn't say that. But that's what you're implying. No, Ma. I was just asking. Then don't ask again. The finality in her tone ended the conversation. Completely. Ada walked away slowly, her heart pounding, her mind racing. She didn't get her answer, but somehow, she already knew it. That night, as she lay on her mat, staring into the darkness, something inside her shifted. Not completely, not yet, but slightly. A small crack in her patience. A quiet question in her loyalty. How much more can I endure? But then she remembered Obinna's face, his voice, his promise. I'll come back for you. Ada closed her eyes and held on to that, because right now, it was all she had, and she refused to let it go. At first, Ada tried to doubt her own thoughts. Felt easier that way, safer, because the alternative, the truth she was slowly beginning to see, was too painful to accept all at once. So she questioned herself. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe the money hasn't arrived yet. Maybe there's a delay. But deep down, she knew. The days that followed her conversation with Obinna's mother were different. Not because things improved, but because Ada started seeing clearly. Every action, every glance, every whisper, now carried meaning. That morning, she woke before dawn as usual. The air was cool, quiet, almost peaceful. For a brief moment, lying on her thin mat, Ada allowed herself to pretend she was back in her old room with Obinna. Back when mornings felt warm. Back when she didn't have to think before breathing. But the illusion didn't last. The hard floor beneath her reminded her where she was. Reality settled in. Slow, heavy, unavoidable. She rose quietly and began her chores. Sweeping, fetching water, cleaning. Her movements were automatic now, her body working even when her mind wandered elsewhere. And her mind wandered a lot these days, always returning to one question: where is the money? Later that morning, as she stood in the kitchen cutting vegetables, she overheard something. Not clearly, not at first, just fragments. The money he sent. Ada's hands froze. She didn't move, didn't breathe. She listened. We can use it for... The voice dropped lower, then laughter. Ada slowly resumed cutting, but her heart was pounding now. Loud, fast, unsteady. She didn't confront anyone. Not yet, because confrontation required certainty. And Ada was not ready for what certainty would mean. That afternoon, something happened that erased all doubt. Obinna's sister returned from the market carrying several shopping bags. Ada noticed immediately. The items were not ordinary. New clothes, expensive-looking ones, shoes, hair extensions, things Ada had never seen in that house before. She stood quietly by the doorway as the girl dropped the bags onto a chair. Where did all this come from? Ada asked softly. The girl glanced at her, then smirked. Why? Do I need your permission to buy things? Ada shook her head quickly. No, I was curious. Well, don't be, the girl replied dismissively. She picked up one of the dresses and held it up, admiring herself. Some people are progressing in life, she added, her tone sharp. Others are just there. Ada felt the words settle in her chest. Heavy, intentional. That evening, Obinna's mother prepared a meal unlike any Ada had seen since she arrived. Rich, plenty. The kind of meal reserved for special occasions. Ada watched from a distance as the food was served generously. Laughter filled the room. Plates overflowed. For a moment, Ada allowed herself to hope. Maybe today, but when the food was finished, there was nothing left for her. Again, she didn't ask this time. She didn't need to. That night, As she lay down, the truth finally settled fully in her heart. Clear, sharp, unavoidable. They are taking the money. The realization didn't come with anger. Not immediately. Came with something else. Pain. A deep, quiet pain that spread slowly through her chest. Because it wasn't just about money. It was about betrayal. The next time Obinna called, Ada answered as always. Quickly, eagerly, even though her heart felt heavier than before. Ada! His voice came through, warm and full of life. I've been thinking about you. She smiled faintly. I've been thinking about you too. How are things at home? Ada hesitated. Her eyes drifted toward the house again. She could hear them laughing, enjoying, living comfortably, off his money. Her throat tightened. I'm fine, she said. The lie came easier now. That scared her. I sent a larger amount this time, Obinna continued. You should have received it by now. Ada closed her eyes briefly. No, I haven't. What? He said, frustration creeping into his voice. That's impossible. I don't know, she replied quietly. I'll call them right now, he said. Something is wrong. Ada's eyes snapped open. No. There was urgency in her voice. Obinna paused. No, don't call them, she said quickly. Why not? Ada struggled to find words. Because the truth would expose everything. And she wasn't ready for that. Not yet. Maybe it's just a delay, she said. Let's give it time. Obinna sighed. I don't like this. I know. But you need that money, Ada. I'm managing. That word. Managing. It felt so small compared to what she was actually enduring. But she used it anyway. Because telling him the truth would do more than inform him. It would hurt him, distract him, possibly break the progress he was trying to build. And Ada refused to be the reason he stumbled. After the call ended, Ada sat quietly for a long time, her thoughts loud, her heart conflicted. Should I tell him? Does he deserve to know? Yes, but can he handle it right now? She thought of everything he had gone through. The job loss, the depression, the fragile hope he had just begun to rebuild. And she made a decision. She would carry this alone. Days turned into weeks again. The pattern continued. Obinna sent money. Ada never saw it. The family grew more comfortable. Ada grew weaker. Her clothes became looser on her body. Her energy faded faster. But she kept moving, kept working, kept enduring. One afternoon, she nearly collapsed while fetching water. The bucket slipped from her hands, spilling across the ground. She leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. No one came to help. No one asked if she was okay. Inside the house, laughter continued. That night, Obinna called again. Ada, are you sure you're all right? He asked. She forced strength into her voice. I'm fine. You sound tired. I've just been working. Ada. There was concern in his tone now. Deep, real. You can tell me anything, he said softly. Ada's chest tightened. For a moment, she almost did. She almost told him everything. The hunger, the insults, the money, the betrayal. But then she imagined his reaction. Anger, distraction, pain. And she swallowed the truth. I'm okay, she repeated. After the call, Ada sat outside under the night sky. The same sky she and Obinna used to sit under together. It looked the same, but everything else had changed. She wrapped her arms around herself, staring upward. I believe in you, she whispered softly. Not to the sky, not to the world, but to him, even in his absence, even in her suffering, even in silence. Because love, for Ada, was not just words. It was sacrifice. It was endurance. It was choosing someone, even when it hurt. But deep down, a quiet truth remained. Love could carry a lot, but it could not carry everything forever. And something, soon, would have to break. There is only so much a person can endure before something inside them begins to crack. Not loudly, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, like glass under pressure. For Ada, that pressure had been building for months. Hunger, silence, disrespect, loneliness, and the constant, exhausting effort of pretending everything was fine. She had carried it all without complaint, without confrontation, without breaking. But even the strongest hearts have limits, and Ada was reaching hers. That morning began like every other. Before sunrise, before voices, before movement, Ada woke up on her thin mat, her body aching in places she no longer paid attention to. For a moment she didn't move. She simply lay there, staring into the faint darkness. Her stomach was empty. It had been empty the night before too. She tried to remember the last time she had eaten a full meal. She couldn't. Slowly, she sat up. Her head spun slightly. She closed her eyes and steadied herself. "You have to get up." And she did. The compound was quiet as she began sweeping. The broom moved rhythmically across the ground. Back and forth, back and forth. Like a routine her body had memorized even when her mind was too tired to follow. As she worked, her thoughts drifted, as they always did, to Obinna. Where he was, what he was doing, if he had eaten, if he was okay. The irony didn't escape her. She, who barely had strength to stand some mornings, still worried more about him than herself. By mid-morning, the house was alive. Voices filled the air. Doors opened and closed. Laughter echoed. Ada moved quietly through it all, invisible in plain sight. It started with something small. It always did. "Ada!" Obinna's mother called sharply from inside. Ada hurried in. "Yes, Ma?" "Why is this place still dirty?" the woman snapped, pointing toward a corner. Ada blinked. "I cleaned it this morning." "Are you arguing with me?" the woman interrupted. "No, Ma. I." "Then clean it again." "Yes, Ma." Ada bent down immediately, picking up the broom. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from exhaustion. Still, she said nothing. As she worked, Obinna's sister walked past her, pausing just long enough to speak. "You really don't know when to leave, do you?" Ada froze briefly, then continued sweeping. "I'm talking to you," the girl added. Ada lifted her head slightly. "I heard you." "Then answer." Ada hesitated. "I don't understand." The girl laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. "Of course you don't." The tension in the house had become thick, unavoidable. Even the air felt different, heavy, like something was waiting to happen. By afternoon, Ada had not eaten. Again, she stood in the kitchen doorway watching as food was being served. Her body felt weak, her hands slightly unsteady, but she remained quiet, waiting, hoping. "Close that door," Obinna's mother said suddenly. Ada blinked. "Ma, you're blocking the air." Ada stepped back immediately. "Yes, Ma." The door closed, and with it, her chance. She turned away slowly, her chest tightening. Something inside her shifted again. Not loudly, but noticeably. That evening, everything came to a head. Ada was outside, rinsing plates with the little water she had managed to fetch earlier. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the compound. Her movements were slower now, weaker, but still steady, always steady. Inside the house, voices rose. First, it sounded like normal conversation, then louder, sharper, angrier. Ada paused, listening. Her name. She heard her name. "Ada!" The voice came suddenly, loud, demanding. Ada stood quickly and walked inside. "Yes, Ma?" Obinna's mother stood in the middle of the room, her expression hard. "We need to talk." Ada felt her stomach drop. "Yes, Ma." The sister stood nearby, arms folded, watching, waiting. "What exactly are you still doing here?" the older woman asked. Ada blinked. I live here." "No," the woman said coldly. "You don't." Ada's heart began to race. "Ma," Obinna said. "My son is not here," she cut in sharply. "And this is my house." Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. Ada swallowed. "I understand, Ma. I'm just waiting for—" "For what?" the woman snapped. "For him to come back and carry you on his head?" Ada's lips parted, but no words came out. "You have stayed here long enough," the woman continued. Eating our food. Using our resources. Ada's eyes widened slightly. Eating? But she didn't say it. I've been helping, Ada began softly. Helping? The sister laughed. You call this helping? Ada's voice trembled now. I do everything I can. And yet you're still here. The woman interrupted. The room felt smaller. The walls closer. The air thinner. Ada, the woman said, her voice dropping lower now, more dangerous. Pack your things. Ada froze. I what? Leave. The word hit like a slap. Ma, Ada whispered. Where will I go? The woman shrugged. That is not my concern. Tears filled Ada's eyes instantly. But I'm his wife. And we are his family, the woman replied sharply. And we don't want you here. Silence. Deep, painful, final. Ada looked from one face to another, searching, hoping, for even a trace of softness. There was none. Please, she said, her voice breaking now. Just give me a little time. I don't have anywhere. I said leave, the woman shouted. The sound echoed through the house, through Ada's chest, through everything she had been holding together. Without warning, the sister walked past her, heading toward the corner where Ada's few belongings were kept. Ada turned quickly. Please don't. But it was too late. Her small bag was picked up, thrown. It landed near the door with a dull thud. Take your things and go, the girl said coldly. Ada stood there, frozen, tears streaming silently down her face. This was it. The moment everything she had endured led to. Slowly, she walked toward the door. Her legs felt heavy, unsteady. She bent down and picked up her bag. Felt lighter than it should, because it carried so little. She turned back once. Just once. Ma, she said softly. No response. No eye contact. Nothing. And in that moment, Ada understood. Completely. She stepped outside. The door closed behind her. Firm. Final. The sound echoed louder than the shouting had. For a moment, she just stood there, in the compound, with her small bag in her hand. No plan. No destination. No home. The sky above was fading into evening. The world continued. People passed. Voices carried. Life moved. But for Ada, everything had stopped. She took a step, then another, slowly walking away from the place she had tried so hard to belong. No one followed. No one called her back. No one cared. As she reached the road, the tears finally came fully. Not quiet anymore. Not controlled. Just raw. Painful. Unfiltered. I did everything, she whispered to herself, her voice breaking. I did everything. But sometimes, everything is still not enough. And just like that, Ada became something she never imagined she would be. Homeless. Alone. And completely forgotten. But somewhere deep inside her, a small, stubborn part remained. Unbroken. Barely. But still there. Because even as everything fell apart, one truth remained. She was still Ada. And her story was not over yet. The first night was the hardest. Not because Ada had nowhere to go, but because, for the first time in her life, she truly understood what it meant to have no place at all. When she left Obinna's family house, she didn't know where her feet were taking her. She just walked. One step, then another. Her small bag clutched tightly in her hand, as if letting go of it would mean losing the last proof that she existed somewhere before this moment. The sky had already begun to darken. Shadows stretched across the road. People passed by her. Some in a hurry, some laughing, some lost in their own worlds. No one noticed her, or if they did, they didn't stop. Ada walked until her legs began to ache, until the strength she had been forcing through her body all day began to fade. She slowed, then stopped, standing by the roadside, unsure of what to do next. Her chest rose and fell unevenly. Her eyes scanned her surroundings. Shops, stalls, closed doors, strangers. Everything felt unfamiliar. Even the air. Where do I go? The question echoed in her mind. But no answer came. She spotted a small, half-closed shop ahead, its metal shutter pulled halfway down, leaving just enough space for someone to sit near its entrance. Ada hesitated, then slowly walked toward it. She lowered herself carefully to the ground, her back resting against the cool metal. Her body welcomed the stillness, but her mind refused to rest. The night deepened, the sounds changed. Daytime noise faded into distant echoes. Conversations became fewer, footsteps less frequent. Cold crept in quietly. Ada wrapped her arms around herself. Her thin clothing did little to shield her from the chill. She pulled her knees closer to her chest, trying to hold in whatever warmth she could. For a moment, she closed her eyes. But sleep didn't come. Instead, memories did. Obinna's laughter, the warmth of their small room, the way he used to call her name, the promises. "I'll come back for you." Ada's chest tightened. A tear slipped down her cheek. Then another. She pressed her face into her arms, trying to quiet the sound of her own pain. But there was no one to hear her anyway. That was the worst part. Not the hunger, not the cold, not even the fear. It was the silence. The realization that if she disappeared that night, the world would continue exactly the same. Morning came slowly. Ada woke with a stiff neck and a body that felt heavier than usual. For a moment she didn't move. Her eyes remained closed, because opening them meant facing reality again. But reality doesn't wait. She opened her eyes. The street was already coming alive. People moved past her. Some glanced briefly. Others didn't look at all. Ada sat up slowly. Her body protested. Her stomach twisted painfully. She hadn't eaten. Not properly. Not in days. She swallowed hard, then stood. Her legs trembled slightly, but she steadied herself. "You have to move." She picked up her bag and began walking again. No direction, no plan, just movement, because standing still felt like giving up. By midday the sun was harsh, unforgiving. It pressed down on her skin, draining what little energy she had left. Ada stopped near a roadside tap. A few people were gathered there, fetching water. She hesitated, then approached slowly. "Please," she said softly, "can I have some water?" A woman looked at her briefly, then nodded toward the tap. Ada didn't wait. She moved quickly, cupping her hands under the flowing water, drinking, again, again, again. The water was warm, but it felt like life. "Thank you," she said quietly. The woman didn't respond, but she didn't turn her away either. And for now, that was enough. The days that followed blurred together. Ada learned quickly where to sit without being chased away, where to find water, where to avoid trouble. She slept wherever she could, under shop shades, near quiet corners, sometimes on bare ground, sometimes sitting up, always alert, always aware. Hunger became constant, a dull ache that never fully left. Sometimes kind strangers gave her leftovers. Sometimes she found small ways to earn coins, helping carry items, cleaning small spaces, doing anything she could. But it was never enough. Her body grew weaker, her clothes looser, her face thinner, but her eyes still held something. Hope, not loud, not strong, but present. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in soft orange and fading gold, Ada sat quietly by the roadside. Her bag rested beside her. Her hands lay in her lap. Still, she stared ahead, but her mind was somewhere else. "This cannot be my life." The thought came suddenly, clear, sharp, unavoidable. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, then another, and that's when she remembered. The house, not Obinna's family house, not the one that rejected her. The other one, the unfinished building, the one Obinna had started, the one he used to talk about with so much pride, the one that held their shared dream. Ada's eyes opened slowly. Her heart began to beat faster. Still there. She hadn't been back since everything changed. Hadn't allowed herself to think about it, because it was tied to a future that had paused. But now, it was something else. Possibility. She stood up, slowly, carefully. Her body was tired, but something inside her had just woken up. She picked up her bag, adjusted it in her hand, and began to walk. The journey felt longer than she remembered. Or maybe it was just harder now. Each step required effort. Each breath felt heavier. But she didn't stop. Because for the first time since she was thrown out, she wasn't just wandering. She was going somewhere. When she finally reached it, the sight made her pause. The building stood exactly as it had been left. Unfinished, silent, weathered slightly by time, but still standing. The walls were incomplete. The roof only partially done. Open spaces where windows should be. Dust settled across the surfaces. It wasn't much, but to Ada, it was everything. Her chest tightened. Tears filled her eyes. "This was our dream," she whispered softly. Slowly, she stepped inside. The air was still, quiet, different from the noise of the street. She walked carefully across the dusty floor, her eyes scanning the space. Every corner felt familiar, even in its incompleteness. She found a small area relatively sheltered, a corner where the wind didn't cut through as harshly. She set her bag down, and just stood there for a moment, taking it in. This wasn't a house. Not yet. But it was something the street wasn't. It was theirs. Ada lowered herself slowly to the ground, her body finally giving in to exhaustion. She leaned against the wall, closed her eyes, and for the first time in days, her breathing steadied. Not because everything was okay, not because her life had suddenly improved, but because she had found a place. Even if it was unfinished, even if it was broken, it was still a beginning. And sometimes, a beginning is all you need to keep going. Time changed inside the unfinished house. Not because the days stopped moving, but because they stopped feeling different. Morning, afternoon, night, they all blended into one long stretch of survival. The first night Ada slept inside the building, she didn't sleep deeply. She couldn't. Every small sound pulled her awake. The rustle of wind through the open spaces where windows should have been. The distant barking of dogs. Footsteps far away. Voices carried faintly through the night air. She sat up more than once, her heart racing, her eyes scanning the darkness. It didn't feel safe. Not yet. But it felt better. Better than the street. Better than nothing. By morning, exhaustion had finally pulled her into a brief, restless sleep. She woke stiff, her back pressed against the cold wall, her neck aching. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then reality returned. Slowly, quietly, unforgiving. Ada sat up and looked around. The building was exactly as she had left it the night before. Bare, unfinished, silent. But now, in the soft light of morning, it didn't look as harsh. There was space. A kind of calm. She exhaled slowly. This will have to do. And so, she began. Ada cleaned. Not because anyone asked her to. Not because it would change much. But because it gave her something to hold on to. Something familiar. Something she could control. She gathered broken pieces of wood, pushing them into one corner. Swept dust out as best as she could with a makeshift broom she created from dry leaves and sticks. Arranged her small belongings neatly. Marked a space. Her space. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Days passed. Then more. Then more. Ada settled into a routine. Not because she wanted to, but because routine makes survival easier. Every morning, she woke with the sun. Sometimes before it, she would step outside, stretch her stiff limbs, and take in the early air before the heat set in. Then she would walk. She found places where she could get water. Places where people were less likely to chase her away. Places where she could quietly ask for help without drawing attention. "Please, do you have anything small?" she would ask softly. Sometimes people ignored her. Sometimes they waved her away. Sometimes, someone stopped. Piece of bread. A small coin. Leftovers wrapped in paper. It was never consistent. Never enough. But it was something. And Ada learned to be grateful for every small thing. By afternoon, the sun became harsh again. She would return to the building then, retreating into the shadowed space she had claimed. Sitting, resting, saving her strength. Sometimes she would talk. Not loudly, not like someone expecting an answer, just softly, to herself, to the silence. Today was not so bad, she would say. Or, I need to find a better place for water. Or sometimes, Obinna, where are you now? His name lingered in the air longer than anything else. At night she stayed inside, curled up in her corner, listening, waiting, because night was when the loneliness became loudest. The darkness wrapped around her, the silence pressed in, and her thoughts refused to stay quiet. She thought of their old room, the warmth, the laughter, the small conversations that once filled her days. She thought of the promises. I'll come back for you, and she held onto them, tightly, almost desperately. Weeks turned into months. The seasons shifted slightly. The air changed. The sun burned hotter some days, softer on others. But Ada remained. Her body changed too. She became thinner. Her cheeks hollowed slightly. Her arms lost their softness. Her strength faded little by little. But her eyes still held something. Not the same as before. Not as bright. Not as full. But still there. A quiet light. Hope. It didn't shout. It didn't push. It didn't promise anything. But it stayed. There were days she almost gave up. Days when her body refused to move. Days when the hunger felt unbearable. Days when the weight of everything pressed down so hard she could barely breathe. On those days she would sit for hours. Not moving. Not speaking. Just existing. And sometimes tears would come. Quiet. Slow. Unstoppable. Why? She whispered once, her voice breaking in the empty space. Why this? There was no answer. But even then, she didn't leave. Because leaving would mean letting go. And letting go would mean accepting that everything she had believed in was gone. And Ada wasn't ready for that. One evening, as the sun dipped low, she sat just outside the building. The sky stretched wide above her, painted in soft shades of orange and fading gold. It reminded her of something. Nights with Obinna, sitting side by side, talking about the future. You see that? He had said once, pointing at the sky. One day, we'll watch this from our own balcony. Ada smiled faintly, a small, fragile smile. We are here, she whispered. You just don't know it yet. She placed her hand gently on the rough wall beside her. The unfinished wall. The dream that had paused. I'm still here, she said softly. And that was the truth. Despite everything. Despite the hunger. Despite the rejection. Despite the loneliness. Ada was still there. Still waiting. Not passively. Not weakly. But with a quiet strength that refused to disappear. Because deep inside her, beyond the pain, beyond the exhaustion, beyond the doubt, she believed, not blindly, not foolishly, but stubbornly, that one day, Obinna would return, and when he did, she would be there, in the place where their dream had started, waiting, not as the woman who had been broken, but as the woman who had endured. And until that day came, Ada remained in the shadows, living, waiting, becoming something stronger than even she understood. The first thing people noticed when Obinna stepped out of the car was not just the car itself. It was him. Years had passed since he left. Years of distance. Years of struggle. Years of transformation. And now, he had returned. The black luxury car rolled to a smooth stop in front of his family house. Its polished surface reflecting the afternoon sun like something almost unreal. Neighbors paused. Voices lowered. Eyes followed. Who is that? Is that? It can't be. Then the door opened, and Obinna stepped out. He looked different. Not just in the obvious ways, his expensive suit, his polished shoes, the confidence in the way he carried himself. But in something deeper, something quieter. He no longer looked like the man who had left with uncertainty in his eyes and hope balanced on fragile faith. This man had seen something, built something, become something, but beneath it all, he was still Obinna. He adjusted his sleeve slightly, his eyes lifting toward the house. The same house. Familiar. Unchanged. A slow breath left his chest. I'm back. Before he could take a step forward, the front door burst open. Obinna! His mother's voice. Loud. Excited. Almost trembling. She rushed toward him, followed closely by his sister. Their faces lit up. Smiling. Overflowing with warmth that hadn't existed before. My son! His mother cried, pulling him into a tight embrace. Obinna stiffened slightly before returning it. It's been so long, she continued, holding his face, examining him. Look at you. His sister laughed, circling him. You've changed. You look wow. Obinna smiled faintly, polite, controlled. I've been well, he said. They ushered him inside immediately, their excitement almost overwhelming. Come in, come in. We've missed you so much. You didn't even tell us you were coming today. Inside, the house looked different, better. New furniture, fresh paint, upgraded items. Obinna's eyes moved slowly across the space, taking everything in. When did all this happen? Sit, sit, his mother insisted, guiding him to a chair. Let me get you something to eat. No, I'm fine, he said, but she was already moving. His sister sat close beside him, smiling brightly. You didn't call us before coming, she said. I wanted to surprise you, he replied. She laughed. Well, you did. Obinna nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. There was a question, one that had been sitting quietly at the back of his thoughts since he arrived. Now, it moved forward. Ada. The name left his mouth simply, naturally, as if it had always belonged there. The room shifted, subtly, but noticeably. His sister's smile faltered for just a second. His mother, returning with a tray, paused slightly, then continued walking. Yes, she said, placing the tray down. Where is she? Obinna asked. Silence. It wasn't long, just a moment, but it was enough. Oh, Ada, his mother said slowly. Yes, Obinna repeated, his eyes fixed on her. My wife. His sister looked away. His mother forced a small laugh. She's not here. Obinna frowned slightly. What do you mean? She left, his mother said casually. The words landed lightly, too lightly. Obinna blinked. Left. Yes, she continued, waving her hand dismissively. She couldn't stay. Something inside Obinna tightened. Couldn't stay? He repeated. His sister spoke this time. She said she was tired of waiting. Obinna turned to her slowly. Tired of waiting? Yes, she nodded. You know how people are. She probably found something better. The room felt colder suddenly. Obinna leaned back slightly. His gaze moved between them, careful, measured. When did she leave? He asked. Not long after you traveled, his mother replied quickly. That's not true. The words came out before he could stop them. Both women froze. Obinna's voice was calm, but firm. I spoke to her, he said. Many times. Silence. She never said anything about leaving. His sister shifted uncomfortably. Well, maybe she didn't want to upset you. Obinna's eyes narrowed slightly. And the money I was sending? He asked. Another pause. Longer this time. What about it? His mother replied. I sent it for her, Obinna said slowly. Did she receive it? His mother laughed lightly. Of course. But something was off. Obinna leaned forward slightly now. Then why did she tell me she didn't? The room went completely still. No one spoke. No one moved. The air changed. Heavy. Tense. Obinna's chest tightened. A realization began to form. Slowly. Dangerously. Ada would never leave without telling me, he said quietly. His voice wasn't angry. Not yet. But it carried something deeper. Certainty. She's not like that. His mother's expression hardened slightly. You've been gone for years, she said. People change. Obinna shook his head. No. He stood up slowly. The room seemed smaller now. The walls closer. The truth, closer. "Where is she?" he asked again. No answer. His sister avoided his gaze. His mother looked away. And that was it. That was all he needed. Obinna exhaled slowly. "They're lying." The thought came clearly, sharp, unavoidable, and with it, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. Fear. Not for himself, but for her. Without another word, Obinna turned and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" his mother called after him. He didn't stop. "I'll be back," he said, but his tone made it clear. This was no longer a visit. This was a search. Outside, the air felt different, sharper, colder. Obinna stood for a moment beside his car, his mind racing. Where would she go? Who would she turn to? How long had she been alone? Then suddenly, a memory surfaced. The house, the unfinished building, the one he had started before everything fell apart. The one Ada believed in more than he did. His heart began to pound. If she had nowhere else. Without hesitation, he got back into the car. "Drive," he told the driver. "Where to, sir?" Obinna looked ahead, his jaw tight, his eyes focused. "I'll tell you," because somehow, deep inside him, he already knew. And as the car pulled away, one truth settled heavily in his chest. He had returned home, but the woman who made it feel like home was missing, and whatever he was about to find would change everything. The road to the unfinished house felt longer than Obinna remembered. Or maybe it just felt heavier. The car moved smoothly over the uneven road, dust rising behind it in soft clouds. The driver kept his eyes forward, focused, unaware of the storm building quietly in the back seat. Obinna sat still, too still. His hands rested on his thighs, but his fingers were clenched tightly, the tension visible even in silence. His mind was racing. What if she's not there? What if I'm too late? What if... He stopped the thought before it could finish. He couldn't afford to think like that. Not now. Outside, the scenery shifted gradually. Familiar landmarks passed by. Places he hadn't seen in years. Places that once held meaning, but now felt distant. But one memory remained clear, sharp, unchanged. Ada's voice, soft, certain. "One day, we'll sit on the balcony of that house." Obinna swallowed hard. His chest tightened. "I should have come back sooner," he muttered under his breath. The car slowed. "We're close, sir," the driver said. Obinna didn't respond. He didn't need to. He already knew. As the car turned the final bend, the building came into view. The unfinished house. Time had touched it, but it still stood, just as he had left it. For a moment, everything went quiet. Even the sound of the engine seemed distant. Then, Obinna saw it. A piece of cloth, hanging loosely from one side of the structure, moving gently with the wind. His heart skipped. That hadn't been there before. "Stop the car." The driver slowed to a halt. Obinna didn't wait. He opened the door and stepped out immediately. The air hit him differently now. Dry. Still. Heavy with something he couldn't quite name. He took a step forward. Then another. His pace quickened without him realizing it. As he approached the building, more signs became visible. A small cooking pot, placed carefully near a corner. A few items arranged neatly. Not abandoned. Not random. Lived in. Obinna's heart began to pound. Louder. Faster. Unsteady. Someone is here. He stepped into the building slowly. The air inside was cooler, quieter, almost sacred. His footsteps echoed softly against the bare floor. Each step felt like it carried weight. Memory, time, regret. Then, he saw movement. A figure. At first, it didn't register fully. Just a shape. Presence. Then the figure shifted, turned, and everything stopped. Ada. The name left his lips like something fragile. Something sacred. She stood there, still, silent. For a moment he didn't recognize her. Not because she wasn't Ada, but because time had touched her too. She was thinner, her face sharper, her clothes worn and faded, her body smaller somehow. But her eyes were the same, and they were looking directly at him. Shock, disbelief, something deeper. Neither of them moved. The distance between them felt too large, too full, too heavy. "Obinna," she said softly. Her voice, it broke something inside him. He took a step forward. Then another. "Ada." His voice cracked now, uncontrolled. "I've been looking for you," he said, his words rushing out unevenly. "I went home," they said. "You weren't there. They said you left," they said. He stopped, because now, close, he could see everything. The hollowness in her cheeks, the dryness of her lips, the quiet strength in the way she stood, and the pain. Oh, the pain. His knees gave way before he could stop himself. He dropped to the ground, right there, in front of her. "I didn't know," he said, his voice breaking completely now. "Ada, I swear, I didn't know." Tears filled his eyes, then spilled over, freely, unashamed. "I sent money," he continued, his hands trembling. "I called. I asked. You said you were fine. I didn't know they were." He couldn't finish the sentence. Ada didn't move, didn't interrupt, didn't step closer. She just stood there, watching him. Years of silence, a pain, of waiting, all standing between them. "You're here," she said finally. Her voice was calm, too calm. Obinna looked up at her, his eyes red, his face wet with tears. "Yes," he said. "I'm here now." Silence. Stretched. Not empty, but full. "Why did you take so long?" Ada asked quietly. The question landed softly, but it carried everything. The hunger, the nights, the loneliness, the waiting. Obinna lowered his head. "I thought you were safe," he admitted. "I thought you were with them. I thought." "You thought wrong." The words weren't harsh, but they were final. Obinna nodded slowly. "I know." Another silence. "I was here," Ada said. Her voice was steady. "All this time." Obinna's chest tightened. "I know now," he whispered. "I had nowhere else to go," she continued. "So I came here." She looked around briefly. "At least this place didn't reject me." The words hit him like a blow. Obinna pressed his hands against his face. "I failed you," he said. Ada didn't respond. "I failed you," he repeated, his voice stronger now. "After everything you did for me, I left you with people who didn't deserve you." Still, no response. "Ada." He looked up again, desperation in his eyes now. "Please say something." She held his gaze for a long moment. Then, "I waited." 2 words. Simple, but they carried everything. "I know," he said quickly. "And I'm here now. I'm here, Ada. I came back for you." Another silence. Then she asked, "Did you?" Obinna froze. "I what? Did you come back for me?" she repeated. "Or did you just come back?" The question cut deeper than anything else, because the answer was complicated. He had come back, yes, but he hadn't come back for her immediately. He had gone home first, trusted the wrong people, taken time, too much time. "I came back," he said finally, his voice softer now. "But I found you." Ada studied him, carefully, and then something shifted. Not fully, not completely, but enough. She took a step forward, closing the distance slightly. "You're late," she said. Obinna nodded. "I know, but you came." "Yes." Silence. Then, slowly, very slowly, Ada reached out her hand. Not fully extended, not fully trusting, but present. Obinna stared at it for a moment, then took it, gently, carefully, like something precious, something fragile. "I'm sorry," he said again. Ada didn't pull her hand away, but she didn't smile either. Not yet, because forgiveness takes time. But this moment, was the beginning, and for the first time in years, they were no longer apart. They were standing in the same place, in the house that remembered everything, and somehow still made room for them both. For a long moment after their hands met, neither of them spoke. The unfinished house stood around them, silent witness to everything that had been lost, and everything that was now being found again. Obinna held Ada's hand carefully, as if he feared that even the slightest pressure might cause her to disappear, like she had been all those years, like he had almost lost her forever. "Come with me," he said finally. His voice was softer now, steadier, but still carrying the weight of everything he had just realized. Ada didn't answer immediately. Her eyes searched his face, not for promises, not for words, but for truth. "What has changed?" she asked quietly. The question caught him, not because he didn't have an answer, but because he had too many. "Everything," he said. Ada tilted her head slightly. "That's not an answer." Obinna nodded slowly. "You're right." He took a small breath, then spoke again, this time more carefully. "I have changed," he said. "My life has changed. But the most important thing," he paused, his grip tightening slightly around her hand, "is that I now understand what I almost lost." Ada's expression didn't soften. "Not yet. You didn't almost lose me," she said. Obinna frowned slightly. "You did lose me," she continued. The truth sat between them, uncomfortable, undeniable. Obinna lowered his head. "You're right." Another silence followed, but this one felt different, less tense, more honest. "I can't erase what happened," he said quietly. "I can't pretend it didn't happen, but I can make sure it never happens again." Ada watched him closely, still measuring, still deciding. "I don't need promises," she said. "Then what do you need?" he asked. Ada looked around slowly, at the walls, the unfinished spaces, the place that had held her when no one else would. "I need peace," she said. The simplicity of her words struck him harder than anything else. Obinna nodded immediately. "You'll have it." Ada met his eyes again. "Not just from the world," she added softly. "From you." He didn't hesitate this time. "You will." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, Ada slowly nodded. "Okay," she said. It wasn't full forgiveness. Not yet. But it was enough. Obinna exhaled deeply, a weight lifting slightly from his chest. "Let's go home," he said. Ada glanced around the unfinished building one last time. Her space, her shelter, her waiting place. Then she picked up her small bag, the same one she had carried through everything. "I'm ready," she said. And this time, when they walked side by side, they didn't leave in silence. They left together. The car ride felt different from anything Ada had experienced before. Not just because of the comfort, not because of the quiet hum of the engine or the smooth movement of the road beneath them, but because of what it represented. A transition, from survival to something else. Obinna glanced at her occasionally, carefully, as if checking to make sure she was still there, still real. Ada sat quietly, her hands resting in her lap, her eyes looking ahead, taking everything in. She didn't ask questions. Not yet. She was still adjusting, still processing, still arriving. When the car finally stopped, Ada looked up. The house before her was nothing like the one she had left behind. Large, beautiful, finished. Everything the unfinished building had once promised. This one fulfilled. Ada stepped out slowly, her eyes moving across the structure, taking in every detail. "This," she said softly. Obinna stepped beside her. "It's yours." She turned to him. "What?" "I built it," he said. "But not for me." Ada blinked. "For you," he finished. For the first time since they reunited, something in Ada's expression shifted. Not fully into a smile, but close, very close. They walked inside together. The interior was just as beautiful, spacious, clean, warm. But what mattered most was not the size, not the beauty. It was the feeling. And for the first time in a long time, Ada felt something unfamiliar. Safety. She exhaled slowly. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "You don't have to say anything," Obinna replied. "Just stay." Ada nodded. "I will." But the story didn't end there, because there was still something left unfinished. The truth. The next morning, Obinna returned to his family house. This time, not as a son coming home, but as a man seeking answers. They were waiting. His mother, his sister, their expressions hopeful, anxious. "Obinna!" His mother rushed forward. "We were worried." "Stop!" The word cut through the air sharply. They froze. Obinna stepped inside slowly, his presence different now. Not warm, not welcoming, cold, controlled. "Where is the money?" he asked. Silence. "What money?" his sister attempted. "The money I sent," he said. "Every month. Every year." His mother tried to laugh. "Why are you asking like this?" "I know," he interrupted. The room went still. "I know she never received it." No one spoke. "I know you took it." The silence deepened. And just like that, the truth stood exposed. We were just keeping it safe," his mother said weakly. "For who?" Obinna asked. No answer. "For yourselves?" he continued. Still no answer. "And while you were keeping it safe?" His voice dropped lower now. "She was starving." His mother's eyes widened. "She was homeless," he added. Silence. "She was living in an unfinished building." The words landed like blows. "I sent everything I had to make sure she was okay," Obinna continued. "And you?" He shook his head slowly. "You turned her life into suffering." Tears filled his mother's eyes now. "We didn't mean." "You meant every part of it," he said. The truth was too clear to deny. His sister stepped forward. "We're sorry." Obinna looked at her. Long. Hard. Then he said, "You're sorry because I came back." Silence. "If I didn't," he continued, "she would still be there." No one argued, because no one could. "You don't deserve her," he said finally. The words were final. "And you don't deserve me." His mother's face crumpled. "Please, forgive us." Obinna shook his head slowly. "No." The word was quiet, but absolute. "I will take care of you," he added, "because you are still my family." A small flicker of hope appeared. "But you will not be part of my life." And just like that, it was gone. Obinna turned and walked away. No hesitation. No looking back. Because some actions cannot be undone, and some betrayals cannot be forgiven. When he returned home, his home, Ada was sitting by the window. The light fell softly across her face. She looked peaceful. For the first time, truly peaceful. Obinna paused at the door, just watching her. And in that moment, he understood something clearly. Everything he had built, everything he had achieved, everything he had become, was because of her. The woman who gave everything. The woman who endured everything. The woman who never stopped believing. Ada turned slightly. Their eyes met. This time, she smiled. Not out of hope, not out of patience, but out of something deeper. Relief. Because finally, after everything, she was no longer waiting. She was home. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel and tell us where you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.